friends, welcome back to our channel. So in today's session we'll go with one command, SQL command in DBMS, that is a create command. So create command in SQL. So first of all we'll start with the DDL command. So DDL commands. So DDL commands, we have discussed about these things in the previous sessions, which is nothing but a definition, which gives the definition, right? So one is a create, drop, truncate, etc., etc. All these will be the data definition language commands. So in that we'll see the create command. So what is the syntax for create command? So in order to use these SQL commands, we require one DBMS tool. So we will select MySQL as a DBMS tool to execute the queries. So why? Because why to select this MySQL means it's an open source, right? So we can also select the Oracle or SQL Server, etc., right? So I will choose this MySQL as a DBMS tool to execute the SQL queries, right? So how to download this MySQL and how to install this MySQL in our system, I have recorded the session and I will post the link in the description section. You just follow that and you can download and install the MySQL, and then you can execute these queries. Now, so if you want to execute this SQL command, so first of all we have to create the database. The first step, we need to create a database. So inside the database we have to create tables. Right? So all these tables will be stored in this particular database. Okay, and this DBMS tool, this MySQL, will be having a lot of databases, and inside this databases will be having a lot of tables. So first we have to create a database, and then we have to create the table into this particular database. Now first of all, let us see the syntax for creating the database. Okay, so here MySQL, we have chosen the DBMS tool as a MySQL. It will come under the two different variations. One is a GUI, graphical user interface, and the command line interface. So what is the difference? So here everything, all the queries, you need not write the queries. You can simply use a selections, okay, mouse selections and mouse moves to execute the queries. So the query will be automatically generated, right? But here in the command line you have to write down the query. So we will use this command line because we have to practice the SQL commands by writing the queries. So that's why we'll go with the command line. I will show everything in the system, don't worry about that. So first of all, let us see how to create a database. So if you log into the MySQL command line, you will get a SQL prompt. And here you need to write down the queries. So in order to create the database, so the syntax is create database followed by database name. So whatever the name you are going to give, so that will be given here, right? Database name. So one database will be created in this particular MySQL with a given name. And one thing, just remember, every query will be terminated with a semicolon. So that's the most important thing. Every query, so which you are going to write in this SQL prompt, will be terminated using semicolon. So after end of the query you have to place the semicolon. So if you are not placing the semicolon, if you press enter, automatically the query will be continued with the next line. So here the query can be written in a multiple lines. So the query is not restricted to write in a single line. So the query can be written in a multiple lines. So unless the user gives the semicolon, the query will be keep on going with the new lines. So once you give the semicolon, that shows the end of the query. So then the query will be executed. So I will show everything in the command line of MySQL. Okay. So the syntax for creating the database is create a database name and semicolon. So if you want to check how many databases and what are the databases available in this particular MySQL, the command. So the next one is displaying databases in MySQL. So that is, the command is show databases. Show databases. So automatically it will give a table of databases. So it will give a table of databases. So once you execute this one, it will give this one. Okay. Now we have created a database and we have seen whether the database has been created in the MySQL or not. So if the database was created here, so that will be available in this particular list, right? So once it was done, our next step is we have to create a table. So in order to create a table, that table should be created in a particular database. So first we have to enter into the database, and in that particular database we have to write down the tables. I mean, we have to create the tables and we can execute the queries. So how to enter into the particular database? How to enter into particular database? So see, I will show you. So it will show the result here with a list of databases. So entering into database. Entering into the database. The query is SQL use database name. Use database name. So automatically we will be entering into that particular database. Now after this one, we'll get a command that database changed. We'll get the statement simply here, the database changed. So if you got this statement, that implies we are entering into that particular database and we are going to use this particular database. So in that particular database, we are going to write the tables. So whatever the tables we are creating, that will be saved in this particular database. Okay, whatever the database given here. So once you enter into this particular database, now we have to create a table. So whatever the tables we are going to create, everything will be in this particular database name. So next step, how to create a table. How to create a table. Creating table. So as I have said that the query can be written in multiple rows, okay, multiple lines. So SQL, the prompt, and here give the command create table, give the table name, and open the parenthesis, and in the table we know that there will be a columns and rows. So we have to give the columns, that we call it as an attributes. So we have to define the attributes which should be available in this particular table with the corresponding data types. So based upon the value we are storing into the attribute, we have to define that particular attribute with the corresponding data types. So in the previous session we have seen the different data types, right? So here, see, if you press enter, automatically you will get one more line, okay? And because here we have not given semicolon. If you have given semicolon, that will be treated as the end of the query. So if you are not giving any semicolon and press enter, automatically it will go with the new line. And here you can define attribute 1 and corresponding data type, comma, and again if you press enter, again it will move with the next line, attribute 2 and data type. and if you press enter, third line. So it will be keep on moving unless that user enters the semicolon data type. Okay, and so on, so on. And finally, if you use a closed parenthesis and you use a semicolon, then the table will be created with the following attributes. A table will be created with the following attributes, right? So hope you have understood this one. So I will explain this table creation also in the MySQL command line. Okay, we'll create one table with the different attributes. And here, one more thing. So we can create a table without a constraints and with constraints. So we can give the constraints for these particular attributes. Okay, in order to avoid the redundancy, if you, in order to link one table with another table, in order to give the default values. Okay, so there are many constraints. So those constraints should be given for these attributes while creating a table. So we have not discussed about these constraints so far. So in this session, I am just showing how to create a table without any constraints. Here we are not giving any constraints. This is a simple creation of a table. Okay, in the next sessions, I will explain you about the constraints. What are the different constraints we can give for the attributes, and then we will see one more time how to create a table with a particular constraints. Okay, I will demonstrate everything with an example, right? So this is how we can create the table inside the database. Okay, inside the database. Now, if you want to look at what are the tables available in the database, if you want to look at what are the tables available in the database, so I will execute the same query in the MySQL command line, don't worry. So I will show everything in a practical. So displaying tables in database. So the query is similar to our databases. Here also we can use show tables. So show tables. Okay, show tables will give a list of tables which are available in that particular database. It will give a complete list. Okay, the query syntax will be small difference. There will be a light difference with the different DBMS tools. So if you are using some Oracle, the syntax will be select star from tab. So this is the syntax to list out all the tables of particular database. Okay, the syntax will be a slight difference. So we are using a MySQL. In this MySQL, so this is a syntax to create or to list out all the tables available in the database. So let us see everything, the execution of each and every syntax. That means how to create a table, how to create a database, how to use the database, how to show the databases, and how to show the tables in the MySQL command line prompt. So let us move on to the system and let us see the execution of all these queries. So let's move on to the MySQL. Hello friends. So just now we have seen the create command in SQL, right? So now we'll see the implementation part. So how we can execute the query create. So in this session we have seen how to create a database and how to create a table without constraints. Okay, so after this session, from the next session we'll see how to create a table with a constraint, right? So let us see. First, here I'm using the DBMS tool MySQL to execute the queries, right? So in the previous sessions already have recorded how to download and install the MySQL. So I will post the link in the description section, so you can just follow that and you can install the MySQL. So I have chosen this MySQL. You can use a Oracle, SQL Server, etc, etc. So why I have preferred this MySQL means it's an open source, so you need not pay anything. So it will be available in the internet. So you can download and install and you can execute all the queries. And MySQL will be coming in two interfaces. I mean two different interfaces. One is a graphical user and the command line. So we will execute the queries in the command line, because if you use the user interface, graphical user interface. So you did not execute the query directly by using the mouse moves and clicks. You can directly create a table and you can execute the queries. But you have, if you want to learn the queries, SQL queries, so my suggestion is work with the command line interface. So you'll be getting these two icons. You can see MySQL Workbench and MySQL command line. So here you will be getting MySQL folder. So I will show you. See, MySQL folder. In this MySQL, you will be finding all these options. So one is the command line and MySQL Workbench. So use a MySQL command line. So I have already taken. So it will prompt for the password. Just give the password. So here we'll get the prompt. Okay. So the first one, if you want to clear the screen, use the command system cls. So it will clear the screen. Now, as we have discussed it just now, before creating the tables, first we have to create a database. So if you want to create a database in MySQL, simply use create a database name. Okay, create database name. So I'll give the database name as YouTube. Okay, semicolon, it will end the query. So execute. You can get you will getting the command like a query OK, one row affected. Now if you want to look at the databases which are available in our MySQL, use the command show databases. So these are all the databases available in MySQL. Okay, these are all the database available in MySQL. So here we have created the database YouTube, so you can find the name here itself. Okay, and also now we have to create a table inside this database. So first of all, we have to select the database in which we want to create a table, and then we have to enter into that particular database, and then there we have to create a table. If you want to enter into a particular database which we want to select, use a command use the database name. So you will get the statement database changed. Now we are in a YouTube database. Now whatever the tables we are going to create, everything will be saved in this particular YouTube. So in order to get the details of a tables available in this particular database, use the command show tables. So you can see empty set. That means there are no tables. Till now there are no tables, right? So first we'll create a table student, okay, without any constraints. So actually we have to create a table with a multiple constraints. So we'll see what are the constraints we can see in the next session, and again we'll see the same command, that means how to create a table using those constraints. But now in this session we'll see how to create a table without the constraints. So the syntax is create a table student, and you can give the query in a multiple lines. We can write the query in a multiple lines, and here the semicolon is a termination of a query, and until the user gives the semicolon, the query will be continuously keeps on moving. So just give enter, give the attribute. So what is the first attribute? Student ID, and give the corresponding data type. What is the student ID data type? That means the value which holds the student ID is an integer. So declare this one with an integer, comma. The second attribute is the student name. The student name will be the character, so the data type can be varchar, and give the maximum size of the name it should accept. So the student name can have only the characters, 30 characters, okay, not more than 30 characters. And the third one, student branch, so which branch he or she belongs to. The student branch is also a character, so varchar of some 20. The length of the branch should be not more than 20. And the last one is a student percentage, which is of a real number, that is a float value. So float value, and close the parenthesis and use a semicolon so that the table will be created. So you can see the query OK, 0 rows affected. So a table has been created now. Now use the command show tables to display all the tables of this YouTube database. Show tables. See, there is a table in a YouTube database that is a student. So what are the records of a student? So this is an empty table. Okay, empty table. So in order to list out all the records of a student table, so you have to use a command select star from table name. So it will display all the select star from student. Okay, table name. So it's an empty set because we have not inserted any rows or records inside the table, just we have created a table. Now if you want to know about the structure of this particular table, which we call it as a schema of the table, right? So what are the attributes and what is the data types given for those attributes? Use the command called a description, DSC, describe table name, so that it will give all the field names, okay, all the attribute names, those types, data types, and the constraints. What are the different constraints given for those attributes? So actually here we have not given any constraint. So null value is by default. So everything it will accept a null value, and the default value is a null value for all the attributes. So we can set all these things while creating a table. Okay, we can set all the constraints given for the attributes while creation of a table. So we have created a table without any constraints. Without any constraints, we have created a table, right? So this is how we can create a table and a database. The create command, the data definition language command, is a create. The first DDL command is a create. So for that create, we have seen the syntax, how to create a database and how to create the table. Okay, and once again I'm repeating, creating a table without constraints, without giving the constraints, but we have to create the table by using the constraints so that the redundancy will be avoided. So that we'll discuss in the further sessions, right? So hope you understood this simple create command. So if you are having any doubts regarding this one, feel free to post your doubts in the comment section. Definitely I will try to clarify all your doubts. And if you really enjoyed my session, like my session, share my session with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much.